Hi everyone. This week we're going to talk about Albert Bandura's social cognitive learning theory. So, one of the key components of the social cognitive learning theory is that learning occurs through vicarious experiences, or another term for vicarious would be observational learning. We learn by observing others. Others could be people, you know, actually working with people. This could also be we can learn from various things in media, learning from movies, learning from books, learning from YouTube videos, etc. So vicarious learning, learning through those observations. And so first thing I want you to do, if you want to view two music videos, and we're going to tie those into vicarious learning in a little bit. And so if you want to go to the PowerPoint that's in this particular module, I'll pause the lecture for a minute so you can watch those two music videos, and then you can come back to the lecture. So hopefully you watched these two music videos. So when we talk about observational learning, learning or vicarious learning, we would say it's learning by observing and emulating the actions of others through mimicking. Again, this can be various forms through watching others live, watching through videos, watching it, finding something on pulling something up on Google, etc. It's also called social learning, and it can be pro-social, so meaning that this social learning can be positive, constructive, helpful behavior, or it can be antisocial. So pro-social modeling is most effective when actions and words are consistent. So whenever your coach is showing you how to properly swing a bat. So think about not only just talking about it, but also showing your student. So whenever I'm showing my students something, it goes back to scaffolding whenever we were talking about Vygotsky. Remember, one of those forms of scaffolding was through modeling. And so we want to be another key component of Bandura is being an effective model, and we're going to talk more about those aspects of effective modeling. But again, think about you as a teacher. If I'm modeling in the classroom, am I just talking about, or am I showing it also? Am I doing what I'm also saying? Okay. So your coach showing you how to properly swing a baseball bat would be pro-social behavior. Anti-social behavior would be you watch a violent action movie on TV and then you go out and commit a robbery. I am pretty sure none of you are going to go out and do that, but just to give you an example, that is an example of anti-social behavior. So, some historical examples of pro-social behavior versus anti-social behavior. So, pro-social behavior could be nonviolent resistance as a means of peaceful demonstration. We have Sesame Street, teaching our kids to behave and learn. We also have various examples of antisocial behavior occurring in the news. For instance, 1991 Rodney King beating causing LA race riots. We have our Columbine shooters. I'm sure you can think of many, many more examples as well. And in 1961, Albert Bandura conducted an observational learning study. And so in this particular study, he used kids ages 3 through 6. They watched a video of a man either being nice or cruel to a Bobo doll. So after they observed this, then they were placed in a room with Bobo doll where the majority of the kids mimicked the behavior that they saw on the video. So going back to that component of social learning theory, that observational learning was occurring. They were learning that behavior from that adult. Within that study, it was observed that boys were much more aggressive than girls by a 3-to-1 margin, and aggression doubled if the aggressive model the kids saw was the same sex as them. So some of you might be familiar with the Bobo doll study. If you are not, feel free to go ahead and pause the lecture. There is a link right here, YouTube link, that you can go and watch the Bobo doll study. So feel free to pause and watch, and then you can join back with us. So, more examples of observational learning we see when you think about whenever you see an adult holding an infant, for instance, you'll probably hear some parentese going on, meaning, you know, talking to the little baby. The voice, the pitch gets higher, and you're talking kind of in a your voice changes. Well, what are you doing? And that's using that parentese voice. We use observational learning in dance classes when we're watching others, trying to follow their movements. We use observational learning when we're at a party, when you're not sure what to do, so you're looking around, especially if you don't know anyone. Maybe you're looking around trying to see what other people are doing, and you just kind of start doing what other people are doing to blend in. Other examples of observational learning or vicarious learning, remember those terms are synonymous, they do mean the same thing. When we're in a new job, we'll job shadow. We'll observe that person who we are shadowing so we can learn the routine and learn the expectations of the job. Observational learning through movies and TV, through fashion trends. Okay, we experience observational learning from our parents for relationship scripts, depending on it's so often do we interact in our personal relationships similar to how our parents treated and interacted with each other. So if there was abuse, if there was verbal abuse in their relationship, there's a high chance that you would be in a relationship with a similar types of interaction. More examples, there's cartoon violence. We watch those and experience observational learning through that. And so when we think about, so observational learning could occur even through the music that we listen to. So what were those two songs you listened to before? So our first song, Foster the People, Pumped Up the Kicks, okay? Really nice beat, love the song, but the song is actually about a kid planning to carry out a school shooting. Okay? What did you notice about the other song, Blurred Lines? Okay, this song was actually about a man trying to coerce a woman into sex even though she's resisting. So just think about, there's so many influences that our students are facing right now, and so through social media, through the music that they're listening to, through the peers that they're hanging around with. So there's so many influences, especially observational learning influences. So how can we as teachers, how can we navigate through that? How can we help support our students so they'll make those right choices? Okay, and I think part of it goes back to how can we be effective models? Make sure that our actions are consistent with our words. Okay, we as teachers we have to wear multiple hats. You know, not only are we the teacher, we're the counselor, sometimes we're the parent, sometimes, you know, we can be the friend, sometimes there's just various hats. We're the mentor. There's various hats that we're wearing as a teacher, various responsibilities. Okay. So some topics that can derive from that, some questions that I just want you to reflect on. You don't have to turn these in, but feel free, please go through these questions in the PowerPoint. You know, for example, what effect do you think aggressive depictions in the media have on viewers? You know, what do they have on our students? How do these depictions in the media, what kind of effect does it have on our students? Okay? The American rating system tends to give harsher ratings to movies that depict sexual situations rather than violence. Given what we know about observational learning, how do you feel about this? Okay, so please go through these on your own and just reflect on these various topics. So, social learning theory is basically, learning is an internal change that may affect behavior. And there's lots of influences lots of factors that can influence learning. And one aspect is reciprocal determinism. And I actually have a short video from Khan Academy that gives a really good explanation of reciprocal determination. It also gives really good examples of what it is. Basically, it is depending on your current situation and the learning that you experience is influenced by various factors in your environment. So I would encourage you to go through that video and you can view those different examples describing reciprocal determinism. So there's personal factors that is part of reciprocal determinism, environmental factors, and also behavior. So our basic assumptions, if we think basic assumptions of social cognitive learning theory, people learn by observing others. And when I say others, that means models. Those others become their models. Okay? Learning is an internal process that may or may not lead to behavioral change. Cognitive processes influence motivation as well as learning. And people and their environments mutually influence each other. So going back to that reciprocal determinism, depending on who they are, the situation that they're in, various factors in their environment is going to influence them. And behavior becomes increasingly self-regulated. We'll be able to regulate and monitor our own behaviors and figure out what are the right, how can we successfully and positively regulate those behaviors, depending on what environment we're in. So when I talk about observational learning and learning from others, we're learning from some type of model. And so when we're in the classroom, we are that model. So we want our students, if we're thinking about Bandura's social cognitive learning theory, we as teachers, we want to be those effective models, and we want our students to experience observational learning from us. Okay, and we are not the only effective model in that classroom. We are just one aspect. You know, other models could be their peers could be effective models. Videos that we use can be effective models. Resources, community volunteers coming in could be effective models. So there's lots and lots of examples of ways that we can use effective models. So, however, if we think about what is, there are some characteristics that make modeling successful. And so, for instance, with that model, how much attention is the learner paying to that model? We know that that model is successful if the learner is paying attention to it, to him or her, or to it. Retention, the learner must remember what that model does. Motor reproduction, that learner must be physically capable of reproducing model behavior. And then finally, motivation. And sometimes motivation could be the most challenging aspect, the most challenging component, because the learner must be motivated to demonstrate modeled behavior. So how can we as teachers motivate our students? How can we provide, because there are times where we will provide intrinsic motivation, there are times we are providing extrinsic motivation by actually giving them something concrete. How can we really focus on that intrinsic motivation? How can we engage our students in a way, pulling in their interests, pulling in their background, everything that we know about them, so they can really be motivated and interested in doing it just for the sake of learning it, because they want to learn it. Okay. And so I'm going to end with this particular side for conditions for successful modeling. Your assignment for this module focuses on modeling. So you're going to actually complete a task using a YouTube video, and you're going to evaluate how successful, how effective you believe that model is. Thank you so much.